Welcome to this episode of Sunny's Silver Linings. Sunny's guest today is Ben Jenkins, Director of Cybersecurity at ThreatLocker. In this interview, they discuss zero trust and the critical pieces that MSPs should be paying attention to, challenges the MSP community is currently facing, optimizing talent, and so much more. And now, your host, the founder and CEO of IT by Design, Sunny Kayla.
Hi, Ben. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Yes, thank you.
I'm so excited about our conversation today because cybersecurity is one of those things which, is at the center no matter where you go. And Ben, I want to start with your definition of zero trust. Let's define zero trust from your perspective.
Yeah, sure. So the way I see zero trust is pretty simple. The problem that we've had with zero trust previously is it seemed overly complicated. A lot of different vendors will give it different definitions. So the easiest way to define zero trust is essentially least privilege. It is providing users, machines, network connected devices with least privilege to your network, whether that be to other machines on your network, whether that to be to specific machines, to user accounts, etc. It is in essence providing least privilege so that threat actors cannot use any more privilege than they realistically should have.
Mm-hmm. So thank you for explaining it really well. And now let's talk about your approach to zero trust. What are the critical pieces that MSPs should be paying attention to?
Yeah, sure. So zero trust covers a huge gamut of solutions out there. And when we talk about zero trust here at ThreatLocker, we talk about essentially our four key components. So default deny, it comes under a few different terms. There's default deny by default, application whitelisting, allow listing. All of those I like to kind of group under default deny. Now that's essentially saying that only these files are allowed to execute. So only these apps can run. Any new apps are going to get denied by default. Very simple. You can see where the name came from there. Once you've then chosen what applications are allowed to run, it's then limiting how they can be used. Because if we look, application vulnerabilities have been growing year on year on year. So what we want to do is try to mitigate the damage as to how these applications, once you've said they can run, can be used against you. And that's by ring fencing. That's essentially saying PowerShell can run, but it's not allowed to access my protected files, or it's not allowed to access the internet apart from XYZ IP address. From there, we need to go ahead and look at the user permissions. So elevation control, for example, essentially take away admin rights from users, but allow them to run individual applications as an administrator, which is really, really handy in removing those unnecessary admin controls. And then obviously, finally, we have storage control. Now, the first piece of storage control is USB blocking. Hopefully everyone does some kind of USB blocking already, but obviously that's another piece. So that'd be great if people aren't. And then over from there, once you've gone ahead and done that, it's then about choosing how to protect your data. We essentially break that down into allowing certain applications to be able to access my data and then blocking every other application by default. So the reason we do this is because when an app's installed on your machine, it has full access to everything that you have access to on your machine. Kind of terrifying, because you think about Google Chrome having access to it and okay, yeah, we don't like it. It's still not ideal, but it's kind of okay. But then that application that you had installed 6 years ago that hasn't had any updates, that could be used and vulnerabilities could be found in it and it could be used and weaponized against you. Well, we want to limit what that can access. Again, mitigating the damage that can be caused here. So those are essentially the ThreatLocker ways of doing zero trust. But I like to mention as well, there are a load of vendors out there who talk about zero trust as well. And as much as I do truly believe that zero trust is the best security model to go forwards with.
So, we have heard recently a lot of the tools that MSPs are using to support their managed service customers, they being hacked, and then through that tool, then people get into all the networks that MSP is managing. And there are so many examples recently, and I don't want to name companies, but there are many incidents that happened because of the tool. These bad actors using these tools to get into MSP's customers' information. And what is the biggest challenge that you see that MSPs are facing in the area of cybersecurity, especially in the context of zero trust approach?
Yes, so it's actually really interesting you mentioned that, because I'm going to completely mess up saying some of these names, but the CISA, NSA, FBI, and some international cyber authorities have actually issued some cybersecurity advisories on how to protect managed service providers and managed service providers' customers. And this actually came out on the 11th of May. So really, really recent as to actually when this came out. And it was created as a joint effort by the US, obviously CISA, NSA, FBI, the UK's, so Great Britain, UK's National Cybersecurity Centre, Australia, New Zealand, Canada as well. All of these kind of countries working together because they have been seeing a dramatic increase in MSPs being utilized to attack customers. Because they know that MSPs or threat actors know that MSPs are utilizing a wide range of solutions, and they need to have, and they're also supporting a wide range of customers. Now, by attacking one MSP, you can get a whole host of potential victims to be able to get a lot of money from, to be honest. Yeah. So yes, they're using a multitude of solutions. We've seen before with hacks that have been coming out through, or vulnerabilities or exploits that have came out through certain RMM tools. We are frequently seeing it with different applications that we're using. Application vulnerabilities are on the rise, and they are only going to be getting worse and worse and worse. Last year, depending on the figure you look at, there were between 21,000 and 28,000 CVEs that were released, so vulnerabilities that were released for applications. Now that's insane. 28,000 different vulnerabilities released this year so far. We're on about, I think, 7,000 or 8,000 just so far, and it's only expected to grow. Now the thing is, MSPs are supporting a wide range of customers. Those wide range of customers are going to have a wide range of solutions they're using. So we really need to follow best guidance as we can to make sure that we are as protected as possible. Zero trust is a great way to be able to do that, but it is also worth, and looping back to my first point, this advisory that this joint organization has pushed out, they also have got a checklist essentially of recommendations that you can do, and that's utilizing things like multi-factor. That's applying updates and patches, making sure you have backups. The one that I really like is they actually say in here, apply the principle of least privilege. Like that right there, that is a zero trust policy in a nutshell. Now you could say least privilege is don't install any applications you don't need. They actually reference in here least privilege is take away admin rights from users who do not need it. But again, that is providing people least privilege so they cannot do more harm to your machines. So it's actually a really, really interesting piece that I do definitely recommend that MSPs and IT professionals out there do have a little read through.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that resource, that advisory report, research, checklist. And we will be sharing that with the viewers as a link. And I know Threat Locker is coming to build it, our annual conference in July. Yes. And then we have a lot of education on cybersecurity planned, a lot of breakouts. And if you can bring more, any checklist that can help, our attendees there as well. And we can kind of educate, at the end of the day, everything starts with being aware and education for MSPs so that they are aware where their attention should be.
Of course, and I think we're doing a few sessions while we're there.
Yeah.
I think we're going to be doing one on rubber duckies as well, which is going to be really cool. So how do rubber duckies work? And we want to educate people on what are these tools. For those who are unaware, a rubber ducky is essentially a little USB. And when you plug it into a machine, it acts as a keyboard, runs whatever line of code you program onto it. Now, we want to educate people on the threats of these because we have seen them being used out there in the wild. Don't get me wrong, we've not seen a huge increase of them. They are more of a POC kind of piece, and they're just very, very interesting, but also very, very cool.
Yeah, we appreciate that. We appreciate your partnership, and we look forward to seeing you here in New York area. And we have a lot of experiences planned. We go big, go home. And this year, last year was Statue of Liberty, and this is happening, at the Liberty Island, around Freedom Towers. And but that freedom comes with the responsibility, and the responsibility that we need to take is really being very, very serious about protecting things that we need to protect as MSPs for all these SMBs, because for any country, small businesses are the backbone of any country, and if we can protect these businesses and the communities where they're thriving from these small business institutions, then we are making an impact on this world. Cybersecurity talent is hard to find and hard to retain. And do you have any kind of advice for MSPs, how they can hire or cultivate that cybersecurity talent? Because that's the biggest thing that I heard last week as well at Evolve peer group conversations. That's for me to really serve well, for me to serve my customers well, I need to have people. And it's hard to find people, technical people in general nowadays. But when it comes to cybersecurity talent, it's very, very hard. So anything that you came across, something that is your advice to MSPs, how they can kind of train people better in terms of their cybersecurity skills, how can they go ahead and find and just make sure that their people component of their business is optimized?
Yeah, sure. And just very quickly again, like you mentioned ConnectWise Evolve there. That's one of my favorite events to get to talk to MSPs. I absolutely love them, and I think they're absolutely wonderful events. So that's another one that I definitely recommend as well. Yeah. I think from my standpoint, from a finding the right people is always struggle. It's something that we struggle with here at ThreatLocker as well. We're rapidly growing, and because of that, we do often struggle to find the right people. We've been very, very good at finding the right people, but obviously there is always going to be that struggle with any business, no matter how big or small you are. Now, I think that the key thing for me, coming from, if I take off my ThreatLocker hat and I put on my employee hat, is finding a company that's culture is adaptive and is willing to adapt with the times. Simple things like you see on, again, I link back to Reddit, r/MSP. A lot of MSPs will be talking on there of work from home practices, because work from home is something that people have been looking for as they have adapted to COVID. It's been something that people have actually kind of enjoyed, and they found they can work better. Some businesses that doesn't work for, some MSPs that doesn't necessarily work for. But I think realistically, the best way to retain talent and to be able to get the best talent is to be as adaptive as possible with the feedback you are getting. It's looking out there in the technological sphere and seeing that, well, a lot of companies are now starting to shift to this hybrid work, this work from home kind of perspective. Maybe it's a few extra benefits that you can offer. At the end of the day, to retain talent, it's going to cost a certain amount as well. So it's about making those necessary kind of sacrifices, those cost pieces, to be able to get the right people. Because if you can get the right people and they're happy, they will stay for years and years and years and help grow your business completely. So I think the number one issue I can often find is when MSPs are not necessarily adapting to the times that have changed and needing to kind of stay up to date a little bit more.
Okay, so what I heard you say is more of having that environment where it's built upon that constant feedback that you get from your people, and just
exactly.
continue to kind of evolve your environment, your culture, to make sure that voice of employee is heard, and you act on that advice, that feedback that you're getting. And that's a great advice, because that's what I normally talk about, is that hiring should be done to ensure growth for the company. It should not be for replacements, because you got to retain what you have before you go out there and hire. In order to retain, you got to have your culture very strong and adaptive, because again, everything in this new world that we live in is keep changing, transforming, and your culture needs to transform every single day. And there got to be some kind of mechanism to have that those sensors out there. And for us, go ahead.
I think there has to be an understanding of people are not always going to stay at one place for one time, and being prepared, offering training, that kind of thing. I mean, that's another perk. A lot of employees that I see, I've got friends who are looking out there at other MSPs or other vendors to go ahead and actually join at this moment in time. And one of the things they're looking for is, well, what training can you offer? How is it that I can go ahead and better myself, whether that be technical or elsewhere? I mean, that's going to help the MSP two ways. Well, when they join, if they're doing training, they're going to be a much better employee. But number two, if you have multiple people trained on Exchange deployments, for example, or I mean, that's probably old. No one does Exchange deployments really anymore. O365 deployments, there we go, that's a better way. If one person leaves, you're not kind of stuck in the mud with that. So it's definitely about making sure that I think, I really liked your comment of we should be looking at, because we're growing a business is why we're hiring people, not because we're trying to backfill, but always as well being prepared for the fact that people will be leaving. And I think understanding that as well, and not always trying to retain them, because you have to accept that people are going to move, and as they do grow.
Yeah. No, I mean, everyone should have that freedom of creating a bigger future for themselves. And sometimes it's within the same company, sometimes it's somewhere else. We got to be happy for their future. If it's getting bigger, that's what matters at the end of the day, right? If you have the right culture, you have the right leadership, that's what they want. And then where everyone wins. And truly, truly appreciate your time today, Ben. And I look forward to seeing you here in the New York City metro area at Build It, July 27. And I know ThreatLocker is our key partner. And we're going to have such a great time where we learn, we network, we grow together, and we have fun the New York City way. And thank you for joining me.
Thank you. I am really, really looking forward to it. So yeah, thank you.
Take care, Ben.
Bye.